So let's do the aforementioned G2, since you already mentioned Targamas. Right, I've got to say, Dom, I'll start out on this one. My problem here is, I personally never actually had this lineup once I saw the full lineup and heard all the reasoning. First of all, I didn't buy some of the reasoning. Like, even though they're telling me, by the way, even privately they were saying, but you have to understand in scrims, this was the best bot lane we had. Like, dude, these guys, it was a better signing than Hans Sama or fucking Kazi. It's like, that ain't what I've seen so far when I've been watching. So, like, to me, I think that bottom lane is going to be semi-questionable. I don't think bad, because look, it's not like this the stacked region of bot lanes, but I can't see that being that great. So to me, it's more about basically the Caps show. If Caps can be amazing, like at that point in time, yeah, I think they can win games, but I still personally see them as like a third or fourth type team. And if I saw the first week, it kind of just confirmed it for me. It's like they're certainly not bad, but I don't really see like at the moment like the pure explosive power that I think if people thought this was another super team type line, it isn't to me. It's like a work in progress. Where are you at?
I just don't know where Caps is, because like the guy that they have in right now, the stylization of his name is just completely different. He's got the capital P in his name and he has hair. So that's not the same guy that I remember from last month. And this is certainly not the guy that I remember from a year and a half ago. I mean, Caps was by far the best player in Europe. I don't even think there was an argument that you could make as if anyone else was as good as Caps in Europe during 2019, 2020 summer when he went back to mid. This guy was a beast. He was like the talent of Europe. He was like the guy that was going to actually ascend Europe to the fucking promised land of potentially winning a title. 2 finals in a row in Worlds. And he just looked like he had such a level of confidence that no other players had. And everyone was scared of him. You ask anyone, oh, what do you think of Caps? Like, yeah, he's just the best. It wasn't even a question. Normally, like now, if you asked who's the best player in Europe, you'd get random answers. It'd be like, maybe it's Hillsong. Like Hillsong's pretty. Oh, it could be Upset. Like you could get a bunch. Like, oh, Humanoid was really good. Like you could get a bunch of different answers based on what we've seen so far and what we've seen in the last split or so. But Caps, like, I just don't know where he is. Like, I want to see the Caps that actually shit on everyone again. It just feels like he's more conservative. He lost a bit of like polished level that he had in 2020. I just remember watching him and being like, oh, this guy is like smart. He took the random craps out of his game. People just never even meant that meme. They never said that meme anymore. This guy was actually just a fucking beast all the time. Rarely made mistakes. Always popped off every game. And now it just looks like he's just not the same player. So I don't know if it's a loss of confidence or what's happening with Caps. But to me, it's like this G2 lineup isn't going to work if he's not the same dominant player that he was before.
Oh, I'm with you on that, because that's the thing. When they made this lineup, the one good thing I remember thinking is, now Caps has to be the absolute best in Europe, otherwise the lineup's pointless, so you can't win if he isn't. Like, basically, this lineup is constructed for him to be the best player in LEC. If he is, I think the rest of it can work. The problem I have is this. I agree with you. I don't think last year he was the Caps I expected. He definitely hasn't been so far. The problem I have is this. We're all chasing the dragon of that fucking Gen G series from 2020 when he just hit all over BDD and the Korean team, like an actual team that's in finals and LCK shit. Like, by the way, do you realise, Western fans, that implies G2 could have won LCK? That's not a joke. Like that wasn't even impossible at that point in time. The problem is, not only has the West never really come close to that peak again, but Caps himself, it's like I've never seen that guy again. And I'm really concerned actually with the point you're making here, which is he's starting just in style to be. It's not like he's not getting the kills he's hitting. I could live with that. It's like stylistically he's become more conservative. And the reason why I'm concerned about that, Dom, is this. You know when everyone used to make fun of my boy Froggen for just farming out the lane safely, always doing well, you're up in CS, then going in a fight, just do the team damage, but don't risk dying instantly, until... Here's what they don't realise. That is the path of all LEC mid laners, as far as I can tell. Because at the time when Froggen had come there, because he's a couple of years before Bjergsen, everyone was like, he should be more like Bjergsen, play Zed and Fears and the guy. Spoiler, a couple of years later, Bjergsen's the fucking mage player. He's doing a lot, like, I think, unfortunately... I worry if players, like, it's almost like as you get experience, you don't want to gamble as much, or you don't want to try the sort of high variance play. Because I personally think if you're Caps, dude, it's like being Hillsang. No, please don't ever stop hinting. Like, if you stop hinting, like, the magic's gone. Like, your mojo's gone at that point in time. Like, I love the fact that Hillsang is a maniac no matter who he plays when he never stops going in. So, like, I hope Caps hasn't sort of, like, I don't know, started to overly self-reflect or think it's all on him and he has to play safe or something. Dude, you actually have to be the Caps of old, in my opinion.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes that's what happens when people gain more information. I've been reading a concept that was pretty interesting in a book called Blink about how, like, decisions are actually made better under pressure with less information. Like, it's better if you only are focusing on like 2 or 3 things and you like use very important factors to make your decision, as opposed to having like 50 things that you're thinking about and you're trying to balance every single one. Because people have this mentality that having more information and like being a pro for longer, being exposed to more situations, like having more ideas of how matchups work and all this stuff, how that's naturally going to be a good thing. I think that's why people think, oh, players naturally get better over time, because the more you play, the more information you get, the better decisions you make, and then you'll eventually just be the best player. You know, like they have this mentality of a natural progression that will happen consistently over time, just based on the amount of experience you get if you maintain a good mentality and you practice and you get coached and you still play solo queue and you have the drive and passion. My biggest issue is that I feel like sometimes players get more information and it makes them a worse player almost, because you need to play with instinct at some point. You have to understand, like, this guy is killable. Don't overthink it. Don't be considering a million different factors. It's like, oh, well, we saw the other jungler on his golems. Well, maybe he might skip a camp and he could be here. Like, at some point you actually have to break free of that type of mental prison and actually go for the plays that seem like they're there in front of you. And I feel like a lot of players end up just considering way too many things. And I mean, when you think of League of Legends like that, oh, is the support roaming? Is the jungle roaming? Where are people all the time on the map? And you're trying to track all these things. It just becomes an impossible puzzle that you can't solve. And you default to making the play that will almost never be the worst play, which is just not doing much. So I think that's like the biggest issue that I see with players over time. I feel like that's why everyone ends up becoming more and more passive, as they get exposed to too much information. It's almost like, you know what? If you feel like the play's there, just go for it, Caps. That's all I want to see. I don't want this like brainiac Caps that's going to be the perfect mid laner. I just want to see the raw, like, I'm better than you Caps. That's the Caps I want to see.
Let's keep that point going. I've got an analogy for you. Everyone's going to be able to appreciate this because of the last 2 years. Everyone knows the famous memes that, like, you open Netflix, there's a million shows, but you can't find one to watch. You just scroll. Everyone knows you open up a food app, you just scrolling because the problem is one thing isn't obvious. There isn't a thing that's like, right, I've got to get that. Or there isn't just 3 choices and you pick the best of the 3. You keep thinking because there's endless choices. Keep going. This is actually a thing, by the way. There's an old school League of Legends example people might fuck with if they're from season 1 and season 2. It isn't actually a troll, by the way. Chowster, if you ever talk to him, was a really intelligent guy with some really actually mega advanced ideas. But his problem was he kind of thought like that, Tom. Eventually he got to the point where he sort of thought you could make the correct decision in all scenarios. And it's like, dude, you are just playing a video game at the end of the day. Like, it's not fucking chess. Like, you haven't got 10 minutes to think about a thought. You have to sometimes you have to sort of int, because guess what? The int was you thought you saw a play and you went for it and it turned out the player wasn't there, right? So I would say the analogy, obviously the contrast here, is Hylissang and Perks. That's the reason why, if you noticed last year, I even told you, I don't worry that Perks ints, because the impulse to do that int, maybe your skill level's not at the right level right now, maybe he's playing the wrong champion, maybe people don't play off him, but when it's all there, that impulse is what will make the genius play. That's when he'll do the LeBlanc catch on someone that should never be there, that turns the whole game. So to me, yeah, again, it's just about philosophy. I hope Caps gets this, and that's why I say I actually think the team fits what you're saying, because I think the good thing about this team is you're not going to waste 1 second thinking, right, well, in our team, it's like last year's team, oh, we could play through any lane, we could no, in this team, you know exactly which way your bread is buttered, as we say in England. Like, it's all about Caps and Broken Blade. Let's be real, like, these are the lanes you're playing through. So now you know that, let's just start figuring out the little pieces and let's get it going. Because I want to ask you one last thing, which is this. To me, the most controversial signing, obviously, is Flakked in the bot lane as the ADC, right? Rich on one of my other shows had an outrageous statement. He probably did do this just to make like a crazy. He said something like he could think of. He said he could think of 20. I think it was. I think he said 20. Now listen, I don't know if I'd go with 20. Listen, but at the same time, I was underwhelmed by this signing. Obviously, I wasn't in the scrims, so there's nothing to hype me. And just from watching week 1, like, I don't think there's much there, but I do think Targamas is good enough probably to offset it. Like, where are you at on the Flakked issue, and what are you expecting from him?
I mean, I thought he looked fine. Like, he didn't worry me. He looked like a stable LEC level 80 carry, in my opinion. So I'm like, I don't watch ERLs. Like, I watch so little ERL that I shouldn't even say that I watch any ERLs, which is like, so I pretty much just only watch LEC, and I'm judging him based off those 3 games. I think he looked way better than like Xmatty. So I would want to know who are these 20 names and where are they? Because I'm sure that Xmatty would be somebody who people would consider to be
on the list. Yeah,
he would be on the list, right? Because he was with Cave Corp. They won all the titles. Obviously, when you're winning as an 80 carry, you're going to look better. But I mean, I was pretty disappointed with Xmatty's performance. He looked nervous. He didn't look like he was ready. I think that sometimes like confidence can be more important than your actual skill. When you get to like the LEC level, you have to actually go into it believing that you're good enough and you're able to compete. I think he has that. It seems like he just has that like edge on his shoulder where it's like that edge where it's like, I'm good enough to be here. I'm going to make sure that I'm good enough to be here. I think that belief is really important. So when I saw him play, I was fine with the performance. I was like, yeah, I don't expect him to be the best in the league, but it doesn't look like he's going to be the guy that's holding them back if the rest of the team is destined for greatness.
Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.